Hey, what is going on, everybody? So I thought today would be kind of fun to talk about some things that Honkai Star Rail could add into the 2.0 update, or possibly even the 3.0 update, even though that's quite a bit farther away. But I think that it's important to talk about some of these things and some of these suggestions and ideas because the Honkai Star Rail team seem to be pretty receptive to the things that we've been telling them and the things that we've been talking about. And so I just wanted to kind of throw some of my ideas out there, maybe get a couple of your ideas, and we can just have a dialogue about this because it never hurts to just talk about some things that we'd like added to the game. So the way that I'm going to break this down is I'm going to go onto some of the things that I think are way more likely, and then go into some of the more far-fetched predictions and suggestions towards the end. So let me quickly switch over to Honkai Star Rail. And so one of the first things that I wanted to, this should be pretty easy and pretty quick, and I actually think that it probably will happen sooner rather than later, is I think that we should be raising the level cap to 90. I think that as we are adding extra floors to Memory of Chaos and content is slowly getting harder, we will need to start getting power in different ways, even just a little bit. So I think that they will need to raise the level cap, whether that's a full all the way to 90, if they start doing like half steps, so maybe like 5 level increments from now on or whatever. This would need to apply to the light cone as well. But I also think that another thing that they could do is for the relics, instead of being at level 15, maybe they could go to level 20 or something. That's a very, I feel like, an easy way to not add a whole lot of content, but it at least allows some avenue for people to increase their power and make content a little bit easier if they are not able to, let's say, get like super amazing rolls on their relics, or if they don't have specific light cones and stuff like that. I think that that's a good kind of middle ground to be able to make it to where people aren't just hard locked out of content if they weren't lucky in getting something. Another thing is, I kind of think that we should be getting ready to potentially introduce a new element. Currently we have it's not too many of them, but there are a couple. We have, go to characters, so we have fire, quantum, wind, ice, physical, wind, electric, and I believe that, and imaginary. So all of those have been pretty good so far. We haven't needed anything else, and if they keep these base ones, I kind of feel that the game would be totally fine. It's not anything that is super needed. I just think that it would allow them more character freedom in the future. Something that they could potentially add is maybe like an earth element. We don't have anything that's really like that at all. I was going to suggest water, but with ice already being there, I don't know what kind of a difference there would be for something like water, but that is one. And then another one that kind of ties into a prediction later on that I have, or a suggestion later on that I have, is I think it'd be kind of interesting to have a like nature-based element, whether that includes earth or whatever, or if it's more based on what my suggestion is going to be after this, then I think that would be an interesting route to go. But I think having an additional element being added, obviously they don't need multiples, but just having something like that would help give them more combinations for characters in the future and kind of change things up and expand the different roles and the things that these elements do. So with that, I think another thing that they should start looking into is creating some new type of character archetypes. So right now, obviously we have, like Abundance. These are all healers and stuff. And you have people like Huahua, who is, more like a cleanser. You have Luocha, who's like an off healer, not using too many skill points. Obviously, you have like for preservation, a lot of these people are like shielding and damage mitigation. Obviously, destruction. You have, Jingliu, Blade, Clara. All these people are very, like AoE damage heavy and stuff. So we already have a lot of things covered. But one thing that I've been thinking would be kind of cool to have for Honkai Star Rail is some type of like a summoner, or maybe like an engineer type unit, as we've already been introduced to a lot of different robots and stuff like that in the story. The way that I would imagine that this works, and we actually already kind of have an example of this with Topaz and Numbi, but I also kind of look at the event that we had, the Ethereum Wars, where we got to mess around with some, robots that we got to use kind of like as Pokemon and use on our team to fight. So what I would imagine is that there would only be a very limited number of either creatures or robots that you would be able to use or capture or, to choose from. And what I imagine is that their ult would be kind of like Argenti's, where it takes longer to build up and you can use more energy to either summon stronger monsters or stronger robots. And their ult would essentially be summoning the creature / robot and having them act as almost like a pseudo fifth member of the party, kind of like how Numbi already works. And, obviously this could be only a turn or two. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, or, you don't want it to be a permanent fifth member because that might end up being super broken. But I think that something like that could be very interesting, and maybe you could have the skills or abilities augment what your summon or your robot would end up doing, or increasing their damage and stuff. I think that would be kind of interesting. And that's kind of why I was saying that a potential nature element might fit in for something like that, where, maybe you are using, summoning regular monsters or creatures and stuff. It doesn't have to be any of those elements. I just think that something like that as an archetype would be really cool. Another thing that I think would be interesting, but in the way that Honkai Star Rail currently is, I don't know how exactly it would fit in and work, but I think something akin to like a chemist, which we kind of have someone like Natasha, who story-wise and stuff like that kind of fits that role. But the way that I would imagine this working is very similar to Riku from Final Fantasy X. And currently, I feel like there isn't a whole lot of use for things like the synthesis materials and stuff. Obviously, you are using them for different consumables and stuff, but I think it would be interesting if we had a character that in battle could combine different synthesis materials or consumables to create attack items and use them, which obviously they would need to either add a whole bunch of different new materials to be able to specifically do this, because I don't know how you could go back and retrofit some of the things, like kind of like how Riku did, where maybe this character can act as a pseudo healer, a pseudo preservation defense character, or an attack character based on what they are combining together. And obviously this character would need to not be the best in any of these categories, because that would be a little broken. But I think that would be kind of interesting that you can maybe not run a dedicated healer or a dedicated defender, and you could just combine some healing consumables or something to heal a party member, or potentially, for the ult, maybe it's an AoE of whatever the thing that you are trying to do is. So for your ult, you could combine some of the items to do like an AoE heal or an AoE shield or AoE damage. I think that would be kind of interesting. Again, I don't know how you would go about that exactly, which luckily, because we don't have any kind of PvP and stuff and it's all single player, I think there is a chance you could be able to do something like that, but it would be, I think that would be kind of a lot of work and UI stuff that you would need to move around. Another idea, and this is way, way, way out there, is I think it'd be interesting if there was someone that was, I kind of call it like a portal user or something like that, where, you could set up portals or use abilities that reflect an enemy's attack back at them, or maybe you can redirect an attack to someone else or stuff like that. I think that would be kind of interesting in terms of strategy and coming up with, or like saving different party members and stuff like that. Or maybe you could like split attacks where you have a character attack a portal and then the portal splits the attack and it hits 2 enemies or something like that. I think that would allow for some interesting, team comps and stuff, but that's pretty out there and pretty, like that's something that I don't really see happening anytime soon. I just think that would be kind of a cool idea. Another thing that I would really like to see, but I also don't really think is going to come in, is something like dual element characters. This would definitely be something that they would need to try and figure out a lot, whether it's the character inherently is dual element, or if parts of their skill kit have different elements attached to them. I think that as we get further into the game and things start getting harder and harder, having someone who is able to, break or whittle down, multiple elements at a time, or, if let's say the characters or the enemy is weak to one of them, then at least you can use part of your kit and stuff to help them. I don't know exactly how this would fit into the meta currently, but I think that for the future, to make things a little bit more interesting or to cover more bases, if they decide to make enemies a lot stronger and they're adding different elements and stuff like that, eventually we are going to hit a point where the 4 characters with single elements are probably not going to be enough. And unless you are only running a silver wolf or someone who is able to apply one of these weaknesses to an enemy, then I think that this kind of allows for a broader range of characters to be added to teams to cover these different weaknesses. And the last thing that I think would be kind of interesting to add, and actually I think this one could be easier to add than pretty much everything else, is ascended ultimates or skills. So the way that I would imagine this working, there are two different ways you can go about this. You could have potentially interplay between 2 different characters, that when you have both of these characters, and let's say they're like max level and you have to, have them with their traces all the way up or something. I don't know what the conditions would be, but you could have both of these characters that when they both have their ultimates ready, similar to when you use a path resonance or one of the path abilities in Simulated Universe and some of the other times that we've gotten to use it, maybe you could have a special UI option that basically uses a combined or an ascended ult, where both of these characters would do, I would assume it would be a unique animation, just because it would be kind of weird to just do this individual ults and just have the animations play at the same time or right after another. I could see this maybe like Bronya and Sela, or Danhong and March, or some of these different characters that already have story interplay, maybe like Himiko and Welt. that is an interesting idea. The same could be with skills. Another way that this could work out potentially is, let's say you use an ability a certain number of times, and then on like let's say 3 times, and then the 4th time would be like a stronger version of the skill or a stronger version of the ultimate. And this could, sorry, excuse the sirens over there, but you could use after the 3 times of using the skill or ultimate, that you could use a stronger version of it. I think that would be probably the easier way to go about it, but I also don't know how you would get, would it be like a unique animation? Would it just do more damage and stuff? I think that's something that the Hoyoverse team would need to take a look at, or people would need to kind of float around some of these ideas and figure out how they would want that to work. But anyways, those are just some of my ideas. Again, most of these probably will not be added, but it's something that I think is important to at least throw some of these ideas out there, because maybe some of these actually would be a cool idea. Maybe some of these would add a bunch of extra content for us to be able to do. I can imagine that, again, for something like the summoner or the engineer, being able to, maybe you have to go out into the overworld and there is a chance when you're fighting these enemies that you are able to capture them for future use, or maybe for dual ultimates or something like that. Maybe there are special like affinity quests or something like that, kind of like how we have the Trailblaze missions and the companion quests and all that kind of stuff, that would allow the characters to build up enough like relationship or affinity to be able to use this ability, and that could be fun and add some extra dynamics and stuff to the story. But anyways, those are just some of my thoughts. What do you think? Do you like any of the suggestions that I added? Do you have any of your own? I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment down below if what your suggestions are, or what you thought of some of the things that I brought up. And Penacony and the 2.0 update should be coming in around, I think it's about 5-ish weeks from as of the time of this recording. So I'm not sure what kind of big major game experiences and stuff are going to be coming with it, but hopefully it'll be something that adds a lot to the game, and I have faith in the Honkai Star Rail team, so I'm not too worried. So anyways, that's all I have for today. I hope you have a great one, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.